have they said?
We well, oh, it automatically records. So, all right,
Fabulous.
we're gonna wait a couple, maybe a minute or so while people enter. Um,
We can always cut off this part too when we post
we
it.
can, we can.
Yeah. So we'll give a big pause before we
Right.
actually start. Can you see when people are coming in?
Yep. There's one now.
Okay.
Hello. Good morning. We'll let you guys come in and take your place in the virtual classroom that we are in.
Okay.
And get ready. We're gonna make this short and brief and to the point. 30 minutes. You're in. You're out.
We want to equip you with the tools you need to have a successful hour of code. Are we good? I don't know if you guys are following at all the lawsuits against Meta with children, especially highlighting middle school girls. It's
Yeah.
fascinating. It's something that I was screaming about when my kids were in middle school, which was 10 years ago. And Instagram had just started. I didn't want my kids on Facebook at that time. One of my first experiences, my daughter comes home from school and she sat down at the computer, got on Facebook and saw that a bunch of kids had gone out together and didn't invite her. And I
Oh.
was like, oh no, my little 12-year-old, and she was on like my account, like we didn't give her her own account.
Mhm.
But all the mamas were posting and that's how the girls like message each other. At first we thought it was going to be innocent and sweet. And then I was like, oh no, if my little girl is already, it's bad enough when you hear about it the next day at school that there was a party you weren't invited to. But then when you're seeing it in real time,
Mhm.
I was like, this is bad. And then, it's just continued to really be tricky. And,
Yep.
I didn't want my kids to have any social media. And now my kids as adults are saying, we're not allowing our kids to have any social media. I'm
An
like,
early adopter. Well,
yeah,
guys,
well,
people people are trickling in, but I do want to get the video started. Well, the
okay.
actual um, presentation started. So thank you, everyone. Those of you that are on time, appreciate that. We are talking today about Computer Science Week and the Hour of Code, which is kind of a big deal for a lot of people. My name is Ernie Delgado. I'm the CEO of Beyond Technology Education. We have Sebastian Basilio with CodeStop and Laura Lynn Vasquez, who is our
Okay.
Director of Education here at Beyond Technology. And we're excited to share some of these tips with you. This time comes every year. If you're not aware, this is something that we do as an education community to just really highlight computer science. There's more and more conversations around why this is critical for students. It's just like another language that needs to be learned. It's an international language, and understanding the elements involved in computer science, digital literacy, coding, programming. It's just stuff that students need to be aware of. Some of them will make careers in these areas. Almost all of them will have some type of exposure or need for computer science or digital literacy. In any case, let us kick this off. I'm going to let Laura Lynn take it from here and enjoy the presentation.
Thanks, Ernie. If you guys would, those of you that are on, go ahead and put in the chat your name and then where you're from, what school, if you teach a grade or if you're an administrator. I would love to hear from you. Anytime you have any questions, go ahead, put those in the chat. And then at the very end, we'll have a Q&A time when we can address any of those and we can unmute you guys and answer any questions that you might have. So Computer Science Education Week has within it the Hour of Code, and it's just right around the corner for us, the first week of December. And a little bit on the history of it. It started in 2013 with code.org, and they actually launched the Hour of Code Challenge. And it was on its web page, and it was to teach computer science to school students, enticing them to complete short programming tutorials and give them a taste of coding. So Computer Science Week is really an annual call to inspire K through 12 students to learn computer science, advocate for equity, and celebrate the contributions of students and teachers and partners in the field. But we have found that there's this increased reliance on technology, and it's made education more democratic and available to people everywhere, as we can see. It is vastly improving learning environments. I'm sure most of your schools have some kind of a computer program that the kids are on that helps them with reading and writing. But this movement online also means that those without digital skills will be increasingly left behind. We saw that during COVID-19 and the shutdown of schools, that when students didn't have the ability and the knowledge of how to do some basic digital literacy items, they were left behind. So Computer Science Education Week really hopes to be an inspiring call to action, inspiring all students to learn computer science. So being in the field of digital literacy and computer science curriculum, I found this research super interesting. The next two slides I'm going to share. So think about it. What job does not touch a computer in some way? Can you think of some? Who will never need to use a computer? Now, I've got some in my mind when I first started thinking of, the landscaping, construction, fields. There's some others that don't necessarily work in an office. But I was speaking with a nursing student the other day, and she said her professors were super frustrated because the students in her class didn't have the basic digital literacy skills to do a proper email, even to know how to clock in and clock out. Even most jobs now have you apply online, even retail jobs. Your child might go to a retail store or McDonald's to say, hey, I want a job. They're going to tell them to go online and apply. So yet with even that, the number one growing jobs for college graduates and those even out of high school, the number one growing jobs are in the field of computing. My daughter is a recruiter within the STEM field. So she recruits engineers and data analysis and different people in the STEM fields. And she's having a hard time filling those jobs. It's not easy to even find a recent college grad or someone who's been in the field for a while. We've got the privilege and the exciting opportunity to be able to prepare our students for the future of work. This graph actually shows the importance of introducing coding early on. Now, we may think, gosh, as an elementary teacher or as a middle school teacher, or administrator, maybe we don't need this until later on, until like high school when they choose the classes and they're going to be wanting to take AP Computer Science or Introduction to Computer Science. But we've actually found that the learning curve for the appeal of computer science actually peaks in middle school, which means we want to start with block coding early on in elementary school, because this block coding that kids learn in elementary school helps them to learn to problem solve and think critically. Yet block coding does not necessarily move students directly into command line coding in high school. Students actually peak their interest in middle school. So by the time they get to middle school, we want to be able to take them into some real world type coding. And that's why we've partnered with a company called CodeStop. They have created a course that students in middle school and up can learn full stack web development. And so I'm going to introduce the founder of this company, Sebastian Basilio. He's the founder of CodeStop. So Sebastian, will you go ahead and introduce yourself and share a bit about CodeStop and why we want middle schoolers learning actual coding?
Absolutely. And thank you for the introduction. Nice to meet you all. My name is Sebastian Basilio, founder of CodeStop, Hierplicity. I'm also a CTO consultant, and I started as a senior software engineer at Achieve Data Solutions, one of the first data and assessment systems that went live in California. I also served as director of architecture at Illuminate Education, which is now part of Renaissance Learning. And overall, I've spent about 20 years in educational technology. To understand CodeStop a little bit better, I think it helps to understand kind of where it came from and basically the history. for myself and my career. I started as a programmer in 1995. I was 10 years old, learning from books and whatever internet resources I could find. And at that time, I was able to copy code from a book, a printed book, and enter it into the computer to run a game, but I didn't know how to save the game yet. And then that was my first computer program. By the time I was in high school, I had developed my high school's student portal. And this was back in the early 2000s when student portals weren't that popular yet. And in order to do that, internet resources, they weren't great at the time, and it was difficult to teach yourself. But I did find a pattern to this. And I discovered that in order to build software, what I needed to do was read the manual over and over again. At that time, it wasn't, a lot of internet forums where you could look this stuff up, but read the manual, experiment, debug, create software ultimately, and then repeat this process. And it required a lot of grit, but it was also very effective at teaching me the memorization, the facts that I needed to learn to program. And this will come in handy years later once I start building CodeStop. In my efforts to grow Hieraplicity, which is one of my software development companies, I used a simple book style material in order to teach my college graduates that I was hiring the skills that I needed them to know, because they weren't learning that in college. So I basically created a curriculum, and it was a simple book style. It was a huge Word document, like 100 pages long, that supplied my students with resources and links and things like that, so they could learn more about a topic. And ultimately, this turned into an interactive platform that kind of focused on the same methods that I used to teach myself to program, but for other people. So within CodeStop, and it only takes a few minutes to sign up and get in there. Within minutes, people are writing code. Within a couple hours, they can actually demonstrate the ability to write simple programs. And this is all interactive. It's all online. There's no additional tools. And as Laura Lynn explained, this is not block coding, but it does require some repetition, some challenge, exploration, debugging. And these are critical skills for people who are looking for programming in vocation. So I use the same skills that I learned, as a kid trying to teach myself, but made it a more swallowable package within the browser. So ultimately, CodeStop started about 30 years ago when I started to teach myself to program. And since then, we've had hundreds of success stories. That includes programmers that I've trained within my company, the hundreds of pilot students that we've worked with. And ultimately, what we have is a course curriculum that teaches full stack development. That includes PHP, JavaScript, HTML, CSS, and PostgreSQL database programming. And these are all industry-ready programming skills. Most students who have completed all of these courses are ready to write their own web applications, basic ones, but we are working on developing more complex materials for students to build more complex applications. We follow market trends, looking for what's the most popular language, which languages and technology and skills would pay the most for starting salaries, things like that, in order to help us direct what we'll develop next in terms of content. And that's ultimately it in a nutshell, but we'll be happy to take questions on this later on. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so BTE partnered with CodeStop, and we've actually created a teacher's curriculum to be able to guide the students through it. And it hits the K-12 computer science standards, and it integrates really nicely into your LMS. So it was a program built by programmers for programmers, which is kind of exciting that we have.
Real quick before you move on, Laura Lynn, something, Sebastian, I didn't realize this at first, but you actually started this process 20 years ago when you were 10. So the curriculum.
That's how it worked out. It's the curriculum is based on kind of rote learning methods that I was applying for myself in order to memorize the programming syntax and repetition, check the manual, experiment. And for most of my, let's call it, early career, pre-high school, that was the only way to do it. So I know that it works well. Most of the programmers that began programming around that time also kind of follow that method. So I discovered that it works well, and that's what we kind of encapsulated in CodeStop.
I just think that's fascinating because we're trying to capture the minds in the interest of young people, and the fact that you actually started the process by looking at the problem and solving the problem as a young person, that really makes it a very unique tool that you've created that really takes into consideration how young people think. I love that. I wasn't aware of that. I guess that's why they like it so much.
It was certainly a journey coming to that conclusion, but we've seen it with our students that it works well.
Awesome. That's awesome. Okay, Laurelyn, continue. Sorry.
Right. No, it's cool. And just that on the stat that you had on the slide, over 500,000 IT jobs or IT related positions in computer science fields is going to be opening up, relatively soon in the next few years. That is just crazy. So our students could literally come out of high school and be able to have jobs, which is kind of one of our goals as a company, is to have students vocationally minded to be willing or ready to be able to jump into the workforce if that's the place that they want to go to outside of college, and then as well as be work ready and have the skills to really succeed in college as well.
And Laurelyn, I think it's important to explain, we still encourage students to go to college, but now summer work is going to take on a whole different level of complexity. It's not, I mean, there's nothing wrong with flipping burgers, but now you could also go program code and work for corporations that might give you that foot in the door as you get your degree and can move up. So it's just a whole nother level of complexity and skill that we want young people to have so they could go into the world with tools that are really in demand.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but back to the Computer Science Week, before we jump into a course with BTE, which many of our schools have now, we also want to just take this time this week, first week in December, and invite our students and our families to an hour of code. So whether it's they're using the CodeStop program or a bunch of other tools that I'm going to be sharing with you, we want to build the hype for Computer Science Week. We want to demystify computer science and coding and really bring it down to the level to where a kindergartner can have fun solving problems, because that's a lot of what it is. Sebastian mentioned, debugging. There is learning how to solve problems, learning how to find problems and fix it, and lots of ways that we can do that on the elementary and middle school level, even high school, to just make the hour of code fun. So the idea is that everybody in your school, staff, teachers, janitors, all the students and the families, take an hour of this week and experience coding. So we want it to just be really this fun experience for all of the students. So there's ways that we can bolster Computer Science Week at the school. So we could have a computer science hero of the day. Every day you're highlighting somebody in that field who is a hero, who has solved some kind of problem, whether it be a medical problem or a software problem or something in the world, a military problem. There's famous computer scientists out there. You can hold a hackathon. You can hold an assembly, bringing in guest speakers from your community. This one is my favorite, the next one. You can host theme dress-up days. And I'm going to be sharing with all of you on this webinar a whole list of activities that you can do for your school. But dress-up days, I mean, they can be really hilarious. Think about this. You could have a pixel day where students dress up in clothes with pixelated design or create their own pixel art badges. And this teaches the basic idea of how pixels and digital images are formed. You can have code is poetry, where students can wear t-shirts with famous programming languages or coding quotes. This familiarizes students with the different coding languages and the concepts that coding can be creative. You can also come dressed up as your famous figure, like I talked about the computer science hero of the day. And this introduces students to the pioneers of computer science. You can have a future tech day where students dress up as what they think technology professionals or devices will look like in the future. The wearable art ideas can be a part of this. And this one, it could be kind of tricky in today's world, but the idea of students wearing black and white to represent the binary system of zeros and ones, just a simple way to introduce the binary number system. Of course, there's more themed dress ideas that you can come up with, but, a robot day is another one. Webmaster Wednesday, gaming gear. I mean, the list can just go on of creating really fun dress up days for your students. But then we also want, you can also have a dance off day with digital music that you can have. But
That
then,
sounds fun.
yeah, it really is fun. Wait, whoops, let me see here. Sorry about this. Okay. Then, the next one is sharing with parents. So the schools have newsletters that they're sending out. So sharing with parents the different resources, and I'll be sending you these resources, but there are unplugged and plugged activities. So even for families that don't want their kids on devices after school, there are unplugged activities that are games that you can have your students do. There's a game called Algorithm Fun, and it's really just teaching kids about movement and algorithms and how they work. You can also go to code.org if you want to be plugged in, and the families can all spend an hour doing block coding with each other. Remember, we teach our kindergartners how, and all of our families can do, basic kindergarten work, but they can even pick some of the higher level ones. There's actually a parent guide for the Hour of Code on the Hour of Code website that I'll be sharing with you guys. You can even just Google it and see it. And this gives, there's actually a parent letter on there that you can send, and a web page that shows all these different activities that they can do. And then there's an activity called like the maze that I'll be sending you guys. These are just ideas to get you kind of going and thinking. You can sign up and receive on our webpage. We give out free projects. We actually even have, and I'll be sharing this with you guys, a pick a challenge, pick an activity page that the kids can do where they just pick one of the blocks on there. So there's so much you can do. I could go on and on about the activities that students can do during the Hour of Code, either at home or at school. But I want to encourage you to have the staff in on this. The front desk people, the administration, anybody, the lunch crew, anybody that touches your school, have them experience the Hour Code, just so we can demystify it and make it fun. And I'll be sending you all those resources that you can really make it fun with your students and your families. So the idea of the Hour Code is to take an hour during the week where everyone in the school codes. So that would be like the ultimate, right? Like, okay, we're just going to shut down for the next hour and everybody's going to code. If you don't have the white space to do that, then come up with like the theme days that you can have. So at least it's in the air around with the kids in the Hour of Code. And then you can have the kids code at night, and you can give them like rewards and stickers if they come back and show that they coded. And you're going to have the students, then they can teach their families how to code. And how cool would it be to have your second grader go in and say, Grandma and Grandpa, Mom and Dad, let me show you what I've done, and you can do it as well. You can also use this as a marketing opportunity, which I know schools are always trying to find ways to market their school and show off what the kids are doing. So you can have a local newspaper come. You can have your local Facebook. They've got, every city has a talks page. Temecula Talk, Marietta Talk, West Covina Talk. They have these social media pages that you can advertise on, as well as share on your own social media that the Hour of Code is coming. But one school that I saw that actually did it really, really well is they created a banner when you go to drop off students and pick up students, in that area, that had the Hour of Code, join us. And it helped really build the excitement as well as their social media posts. The idea is that we want to demystify coding and really make it fun, not just for the students, but for the families. So I wanted to show you here the classes that Beyond does have. So we have partnered with CodeStop, and the idea of this is a full stack web development course progression that they're going through. And these are the courses that we have available now, and more are continuing to come. But we have HTML, Beyond, we call them all Beyond because it's Beyond with CodeStop, Beyond CSS, Beyond JavaScript, Beyond PHP, and Beyond SQL that we have. And you can also see these on our web pages and get more information on them. So now's our question and answer time. And I'm going to put in the chat some of the links that I do have for suggestions for this, but go ahead. Are there any questions?
Hey, real quick, Laura Lynn, I wanted to mention something. So this isn't just something that we're talking about in a vacuum. This is actually an initiative that all the governors in the country have taken interest in. And there's a group out there called Governors for CS. And so what this means is they're trying to create computer science standards for middle school and high school in every state in the country to make this a requirement. Now, when that happens, what follows? Funding. So all of this is great as we're trying to build up our computer science and digital literacy courses at our schools to know that the governors are on it, which means the departments of education and the funding sources are available. It just makes for a really nice opportunity to start planning to make this happen. So I put a link in the chat as well for that governor's website. You can see what I'm talking about. There's also a link to look more in detail on our solution for computer science. And then, yeah, let's take some questions. Who has any here in the chat? And we'll get them out there. And while you're coming up with the question, I actually have one that I've been dying to ask Sebastian. Everyone come up with one question, please. Let's really pick Sebastian's brain. We got him here. The guy's super smart. Let's test him. But Sebastian, I really want to know your perspective on AI and how it is impacting the world of programming. From my perspective, it sounds like AI is a very good partner to develop code, but it's not foolproof. But it is really it's demystifying and making it more accessible for a lot of people. Am I accurate in thinking that? What's your perspective?
Yeah, great question. And I've been doing a lot of research on this myself. And what I'm finding is that the way people are using AI is not so much as to replace the job. So I'm not going to be replaced by an AI program anytime soon, but I can use AI to become more productive. And the productivity looks a few different ways. There's programs like GitHub Copilot, which actually helps developers write code very easily. ChatGPT, you can provide a natural language prompt and it can construct programs for you, but you still need the skills of a programmer to assess the validity of those programs. So yes, it can produce a program, but someone still needs to take that program, review it, number one, to make sure it's secure, safe, and does what it's expected. They need to test it. AI can help generate those tests and ultimately put that on a server. We have teammates that we work with that will also review this for verification. And as an administrator of companies, I also use things like ChatGPT to develop policy documents and say, hey, you know what? We're having a problem with, let's say, accountability and ownership within our software development team. I can use ChatGPT to help me develop document policies and even interactive questions and kind of exercises that I can take back to my team and work with them on. So at the moment, it's not replacing anyone, but it is something in everyone's tool set that they should become familiar with. And, as an employer, I look to see it as a productivity improver.
Yeah. So it's really shortening the learning curve, right? And just creating, it's like amplifying your ability to get things done. That's what I'm seeing as well. They really lend themselves to each other, and it makes this whole concept of coding, it's not, you're going to sit there, you're not going to have to sit there and grind out lines and lines of code over hours and hours because the AI can do that now. You just have to be able to go in there, test it, and make sure that it's accurate, which really,
yes, it
makes your job like 50 times easier. Which is awesome. Okay, I see something, Jim. You started typing out a question and then it stopped. Do we have any other questions? Here we go. Jim wants to know if it's compatible with Apple products. Well, that's a great question. And actually, it's a web-based tool, Jim. So any computer that has access to Google Chrome can access these resources from a phone to a tablet to an Apple computer. Yes, it's available for all platforms. Do we have any other questions? I did see someone from Morocco on our webinar, which is kind of fascinating. Imani from Morocco. Any questions from across the world? Maybe we lost Imani. Laurelyn, do you have any questions for Sebastian?
When are more languages coming? We're working on it. I know.
So that's a great question. And back to Ernie's question about AI, we can use tools like ChatGPT to create this content faster. Previously, this was an entirely manual process where we'd go chapter by chapter, we'd create the content, we'd create we call them proofs. The proofs are the automated tests that verify students' submitted code. ChatGPT and similar tools can help us create those much faster than they used to. So hopefully within Q1 of next year, we will see some Python materials released.
That'd be great. That's something people are asking for. I'm really fascinated also with this concept of agents, like they're AIs that specialize in a certain segment of whatever the query is, and they work together to solve problems. As we're developing more and more products, I see that these agents and AIs could come together and really personalize what we do. That's kind of the future of BTE, is creating tools to help teachers personalize the learning experience. And the AI is, again, the perfect partner for that. All right, folks, we're at the half-hour mark. This is what we promised. I don't see any more questions coming in. Thank you, Carol. Appreciate your attendance. Imani, thank you. Jocelyn, Jim, Courtney, Ophelia, Sebastian, Laurelyn, and everyone else who's going to watch this after the fact. We are recording and we will be posting this. We're excited about the week, the Computer Science Week and Hour of Code. We're excited about your interest in how to bring these resources to your schools or directly to your students somehow. And we're open to any questions you might have offline. Reach out to us. BeyondK12.com is the website with all of our contact on there. But you could also reach out to us on pretty much any social media outlet at BeyondK12. At BeyondK12, you could find us on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, all your favorites. Okay, folks, thank you for your time. Sebastian, great presentation. Again, Laurelyn, thank you for organizing, and everyone have a fantastic Computer Science Week. All right. Bye, all.
Thank you all. Bye.
Jim, we will.